So our second most talked about topic this year was xAI. Billionaire tech businessman Elon Musk's supercomputer project in South Memphis and the use of gas turbines caused a rift with people living around there over pollution concerns. It even led to a lawsuit claiming the Shelby County Health Department unlawfully approved the permits for the gas turbine use, which a county board ultimately ruled in favor of xAI and allowed those permits to stand. So here's a compilation from our panel discussions about xAI. We've never seen a supercomputer before. It's the first of its kind. Is there really even a limit to what Elon Musk can do?
Well, I'd go back a little further. When you talk about the people that are opposing this, it's some people that are opposing this. I think this would be terrible for Memphis and Shelby County if they were successful in stopping xAI from coming here. The benefit far outweighs the risk. There is a lot of fear, but I feel like that fear is being exploited, and there are people that are being misled on the kind of the science of this issue and what's really at stake. xAI moved fast because they came into an industrial park where they were properly zoned for it. There was a building that was already there. They didn't ask for any public incentives, so we didn't have to slow down and go through that process. They were ready to go and invest billions of dollars in Memphis, where they'll be paying tens of millions of dollars every year in property tax. They'll also have jobs here. They'll also be investing in supply chain purchases as well as services. And those revenues they collect from all over the world, and they're depositing them in Memphis in those forms. This is great for the community, and I know there's fear and I know there's mistrust, and we have to listen to that, but ultimately the leaders have to make a wise and fair decision, which I think is xAI has come in here. I think they've done it right, and if we say no to them, it sends off a terrible message across the international business community that Memphis is just too difficult to deal with.
Norman, you got the last comment.
Listen, we're talking about business and profit, and people are talking about their health. Two very different conversations altogether.
That's exactly right.
38109 has been dumped on over and over again. You have spaces and places over there. Just a few years ago, we were talking about a company that did water runoff, and that there were people who were impacted with cancer in that space. We didn't bring it about the right way by having community conversations beforehand. We did not come forth with the number of turbines that were going to be there, and we continue to talk about economic profit and gain. You would not want this in your community. You would not live near it. If you were choosing a home today and there were a $500,000 home in that space, you would not choose it. You would not live there. I wouldn't live there. And so we should not sentence people who cannot get away from that space without hearing their voices first.
Elon Musk and xAI are in a race for building the best AI, okay? If they lose that race, yeah, they could be gone in 2-3 years. They could be gone in 5 years. That's certainly possible. If they win that race, there's a chance that they're investing more in Memphis and Shelby County. That comes with environmental concerns. That comes with pollution concerns. But what it also should spotlight is there's a tremendous amount of legacy pollution in this city from companies that pay far less in taxes and receive tax breaks. Okay, and let's not lose that perspective.
And there was one lady who came up to the podium or came up to the mic and said, all money is not good money. So I do want to ask, how do we feel about the continuation of Mayor Young sticking to the fact that this is a good development for the city despite pushback, particularly on health concerns?
You know, I think he's in a catch-22 in a way, because certainly he wants to bring good businesses to Memphis and have an economic boost for Memphis, because you can do a lot of things with that, but not at the risk of the safety of the citizens of Memphis. And he's got to find a way to balance this. Even if you just Google search turbines, what I read when I Google search was not pretty. And it is scary, so their fears are real. But we've got to have a health department who is equipped and ready to go in June on monitoring, on their safety concerns and how we alert the public. And he's got to, Mayor Young has to do a better job of keeping things transparent. And I'm just going to say this and then I'll quit. People, their homes is a piece of generational wealth. It's the one thing you don't want devalued. So how do I protect their health, and how do I protect their investment? And those questions got to be answered.
Look, it's a private company. Like, this company has been treated like it's the Memphis City Council, to be quite honestly. Like, it is being held to a different corporate standard than, at least in my 7 years in this community, I've ever seen. And so I think we need to take that with a little salt here.
It is a private company, and a lot of private CEOs may not be out front in public. But with this type of profile, not just locally, but nationally, I do think it's important for them to come out, speak to the media, speak to the community, like they did the Rotary. They need to come speak to the NAACP and some other organizations if they're really serious about getting their message out. Private company, but very high profile, and if pollution is a major concern for the community, they need to be out front talking to the community. And that's what I think.
The resistance from the public is really amping up. Does it feel like voices matter when it comes to new developments?
It's a really good question, Pepper. I'll answer it this way. I think people's voices obviously matter. It's a democracy, right? As far as I'm aware, we're still a democracy. And that wasn't a commentary. But at the same time, it really depends, right? Like in this case, there's a board vote that is suspect, right? That people are raising questions about whether this democratic action was legal. In other cases, what we're talking about, we're talking about xAI or other things, is where does the public get a say that's actually a legally binding one, right? There is a difference between people being upset and having a real democratic process to stop something versus if someone has a right by use to do something, right, and officials believe that to be the case, it becomes a matter of then, is that interpretation right? And I think that's the question always, right? It also is, I think, incumbent on the public to be, and it's hard in these times, but to be as educated as possible about what they can do, right? Because there are always, the more educated you are, the more information, the more questions you can raise. And so I think that's where we are, and I think it's difficult.
A big thank you to Daily Memphian reporter Sam Hardiman, who did a lot of the heavy lifting on the facts behind xAI through his thorough reporting. And also a nod to those insightful perspectives from Shelby County Republican Party Chair Worth Morgan, former Memphis City Schools Board member and former City Councilwoman Tawan Stout Mitchell, and Deidre Malone from the Carter Malone Group. All right, coming up this year, our panelists did not hold back from holding our elected officials accountable. See who called out who this year next.